Have you noticed how quickly time passes lately? Aren't you crazy? Millions worldwide are experiencing the same unsettling feeling. Days, weeks, even months go by in a flash. What used to feel like a whole month now seems like barely a week. But here's the truly chilling part. It's not just adults, kids are feeling it too. And when kids who normally perceive time as endless say that the days are flying by, then you know there's something fundamental that's changing in reality itself. Could it be that God is speeding up time as a preparation for the most important event in human history? Is it possible that we are living in the last years before the return of Christ, and that the very cosmos is preparing for this culminating moment? According to theological calculations that have circulated for centuries, but that few people know about, Jesus could return in the year 2030. And the signs we are seeing are not coincidences. They would be divine warnings that time is literally running out. Stay with me and I will reveal it to you. Why do world-renowned theologians believe that we are in the last years of human history as we know it? What does the Bible say about time speeding up in the last days? The prophecies about the two witnesses, which could be fulfilled at any moment, and why? Could the year 2030 mark the end of the 6,000 years of human history? And don't even think about missing the end, because the signs I'm going to reveal will change your perspective on time forever. I'm El Documentalista and this is because time moves faster. The truth about the return of Christ from the shadows to the light, from the mystery and devotion I discovered that in the midst of eternity, there are parallel worlds, and through my mistakes, I learned humility, making a pact with the heavens. I am El Documentalista. First of all, I want to ask you a small favor. If this content is helpful to you, share it, comment, like it, and subscribe. Your support makes a difference. Thank you. Time acceleration is real, not imagined. People worldwide and of all ages report the same experience. Time seems to compress. Scientists have theories about relative time perception, but there's something deeper happening here. The Bible specifically talks about changes in time during the last days. In Daniel 12:4, it is prophesied that many will run to and fro and knowledge will increase. But is there something more? Daniel 7:25 warns about an evil figure who will think to change the times. And the law? Could we be experiencing divine manipulation of time to prepare for Christ's return? The Bible teaches that the last days will be like birth pains, intensifying and accelerating until the final moment. According to experts, there is a hidden millennial pattern in the scriptures that few theologians discuss publicly. It is based on 2 Peter 3:8. But, beloved, do not forget this. With the Lord 1 day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years like 1 day. This verse suggests that human history follows a millennial week pattern. 6 days of work, 6,000 years followed by a day of rest, 1,000 years of the millennial kingdom. And according to the calculations dating back to Archbishop James Ussher from the 17th century, we are exactly at the right moment. Ussher calculated that creation happened in 4004 before Christ. If Jesus was born around 3 before Christ, as astronomical evidence about the Star of Bethlehem suggests. So from creation to the birth of Christ, about 4,000 years passed. 4 divine days later, Christ was crucified and resurrected around 30 AD. Since then, until 2030, another 2,000 years, or 2 divine days, would pass. This would complete the 6,000 years of human history, paving the way for the millennium of peace prophesied in Revelation 20. But there is more evidence that we are in the end times. Jesus said in Matthew 24:14, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." This prophecy is now technically possible for the first time. 100 years ago, reaching all nations was impossible. 50 years ago, it was still a bit difficult. But today, with the internet, social media, and digital evangelism, there isn't a single nation on earth that hasn't heard about Christ. Matthew 24:14's prophecy may be unfolding before our eyes. According to experts, there are two specific events that must happen before the return of Christ. First, the rise of the Antichrist. But before that, the Bible speaks of a great final revival, led by figures called the two witnesses in Revelation 11. These two witnesses will prophesy for 1,260 days, that is, 3.5 years. With supernatural power, they will have the ability to stop the rain like Elijah, turn water into blood like Moses, and destroy their enemies with fire that comes out of their mouths. What's unsettling is that Revelation 11 describes them as two olive trees and two lampstands. In Revelation 1-3, John sees 7 lampstands representing 7 churches. Only 2 of those churches, Smyrna and Philadelphia, were praised for remaining faithful during persecution and trials. This suggests that the 2 witnesses could represent not just 2 individuals, but the faithful churches that have gone through trials and remained loyal to God. If that's correct, then the great final revival could be starting right now. Why do so many people feel like they're going through unusual trials lately? Why are so many believers reporting that God is pruning them of toxic relationships, destructive habits, and worldly distractions? Could it be divine preparation for the final ministry? The Bible teaches that before using someone powerfully, God purifies them. Joseph was tested in prison before ruling Egypt. Paul was tested in the desert before his apostolic ministry. If God is preparing a final generation of witnesses, the current trials make perfect sense. Have you felt that God is preparing you for something greater lately? Let me know in the comments if you have experienced this kind of divine preparation in your life. But there are even more specific signs that we are in the end times. In Matthew 24, Jesus said there would be more wars, earthquakes, famines, and pestilences. He also warned of rising hatred and lawlessness. I don't need to convince you that we've seen exactly that. In recent years, violent crime rates have skyrocketed, international conflicts have multiplied, and natural disasters seem more frequent and intense. And political and social hatred has reached levels we haven't seen in decades. Jesus also prophesied that the generation that saw the rebirth of Israel would not pass away before all these things were fulfilled. Israel was re-established as a nation in 1948. A biblical generation is approximately 70 to 80 years. That would take us exactly to the period 2018-2028. Revelation 12:12 says that the devil knows he has little time. It's possible that Satan is speeding up his plans because he prophetically knows his days are numbered. This would explain the intensification of evil, moral confusion, and spiritual chaos that we see globally. The sense that time is speeding up may physically reflect a spiritual reality. When we are close to the fulfillment of millennia-old prophecies, the cosmos itself, God responds, is creating a sense of divine urgency in human hearts. Historically, the fathers of the early church, such as Irenaeus, Hippolytus, and Barnabas, wrote about the model of the millennial week. It's not a modern theory, nor am I making it up. It's an interpretation that has existed since the early centuries of Christianity. St. Augustine initially supported this interpretation before switching to a more allegorical view of the millennium. But many reformers, including some Puritans like Jonathan Edwards, also saw evidence of this 6,000-year pattern in human history. The calculations aren't exact because there are debates about the precise dates. Some place the crucifixion in 33 AD instead of 30 AD, while others question Ush's dates for creation. But even with these variables, all the calculations point to the same general window, the 2030s. These calculations are even more compelling because they don't rely on speculation about current political events. We're not trying to interpret newspaper headlines. We're following mathematical and chronological patterns that have been in the scriptures for millennia. Other prophecies also reference this time. Daniel 12:4. It speaks of a time when many will run to and fro and knowledge will increase. In human history, we have seen such an explosion of global travel and scientific advances. Like in our generation, artificial intelligence, genetic editing, space exploration, instant global communications. We are living in the only generation in history that could literally fulfill all the prophecies about knowledge, which would multiply exponentially. But here's what's important. If these calculations are correct, we shouldn't live in fear. The Bible teaches that for believers, these are times of hope. Luke 21:28 says, "When these things begin to happen, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is near." The purpose of understanding these times is not to create panic, but preparation. If we really are in the final generation before the return of Jesus, then every day counts in an extraordinary way. Every opportunity to share the gospel could be critical. This also means that any trial you are going through now could be God's preparation to use you in His final plan. It's not about surviving until everything is over. It's about being used powerfully before it ends. I myself might even be collaborating with them just by doing this kind of research. The two witnesses of the apocalypse will prophesy with supernatural power before the end if God is preparing a final generation of witnesses. Could I be part of that group? The current trials could be your training for the most important ministry in history. The acceleration of time that we are all feeling could be God's way of awakening our spirits to the reality that we are living in the most important days humanity has ever known. Does this mean we should sell everything and sit around waiting? Absolutely not. It means we should live with the urgency of knowing that each day could be our last day to make an eternal difference in someone's life. If Christ returns in 2030, that gives us about 6 years to prepare ourselves spiritually, to grow in holiness, to mend broken relationships, and to fulfill the purpose that God has for our lives. If these calculations are wrong, as so many predictions have been in the past, we will still have lived the right way, with eternal purpose, holy urgency, and genuine hope. Let me know in the comments, have you felt like time is going by faster? Do you think we could be in the final years before the return of Jesus? And how is this perspective changing the way you live each day? One thing is certain: when millions of people simultaneously feel that time is speeding up, when biblical prophecies about the end times align with mathematical precision, and when the state of the world matches exactly with the warnings of Jesus, maybe it's time to seriously consider the possibility that we are living in the most important days in all of human history. And remember, time may be speeding up, but God's grace is sufficient for every moment we have left. I'm El Doc Mentalista, and this was Why Time Goes By Faster. The truth about the return of Jesus.